Hey everybody, and welcome to another Chairman of the Board ranking video. This is where I take a look at the last 5 new to me board games that I've played and I rank them from my least favourite up to my most favourite, just to share some initial thoughts on those games. Now before I get started on these 5 pretty good games actually, so good standard this episode, I want to give a shout out to the show sponsor KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 5 I have Caesar and Cleopatra. So this is a 2-player only game from the Cosmos line. It goes all the way back to 1997, and to be honest, all in all I think the game has aged quite well, but there are certain aspects of the game that I feel are a little bit outdated. So this is one of those tug-of-war style games. You are playing cards from your hand to try and have the highest majority assigned to these particular kind of senator cards. At each round, a certain senator is going to score, and if you've got the majority of the highest value, then that card's going to come to you. You're going to score points based on every single card you've collected, as well as having majorities. And on top of that, if you have exclusive ownership of one or many of these senators, then you'll score some bonus points as well. Now there's also some kind of hidden scoring aside at the start of the game, which does have a bearing on who's going to win or not. Now I tend to like games like this, and this one does have some pretty cool twists and turns, especially through the use of these P cards that are shuffled in your deck. Now when you play those P cards, the actual scoring is going to flip on its head, because it's going to no longer score based on who's got the highest value, but it's going to change to who's got the lowest value. And because in this game you can either play cards face up or face down, you can of course try to get into the head of your opponent, try to mislead them. Are you playing high cards? Are you playing that P card? And so on. So some good interaction there as well. The way the scoring works is fairly interesting, as each round you're going to reveal a card which will show which particular senator is going to score, and every so often when a particular card is revealed, those cards will be reshuffled. So sometimes the same senator can score back to back, but sometimes if that reshuffle card is right at the bottom of the stack, then you're going to know with some pretty certainty that each senator is going to score. So you can use a little bit of deduction here to help you, or help guide you where to focus your efforts. Now, all of that part of the game I liked. I thought it was well done. Now, the part of the game that I did not like, unfortunately, were these bonus action cards that you could draw from a separate deck. For me, they felt a little bit heavy-handed. They didn't quite gel with the rest of the feeling of the game, because it's quite a carefully balanced kind of a hand management style game. But when you introduce those action cards, they just feel a bit too Ameritrashy, a bit too, smash your opponents, take cards from their hand, that kind of stuff. It didn't quite feel like a well-gelled game for me. So if I wanted a game like that, or to play a game like this in general, I'd probably lean towards something like Lost Cities, maybe Battle Line. This one I feel is not quite there and not quite as refined of a product as those other games I mentioned. But it's a shame because it's a near miss for me, but I would have liked to seen those action cards be tweaked to be a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more delicately balanced, rather than being so in your face. So that is Caesar and Cleopatra at number 5. At number 4 I have Stripes. So this is a rather charming little game, as you have 7 cards in front of you in a row, and these cards will have a bunch of different stripes on them in different colours. Now the goal of the game is quite cool and nice and clear, that you are trying to get one particular coloured stripe along your whole board by shifting these cards up and down. Now the way the game works is pretty simple, where you'll be choosing an action from the ones available in the centre. These might let you kind of flip your tiles or your cards upside down. They might let you swap them with other people, swap them with ones from the deck, get kind of swap cards around, all these different things you'd imagine with manipulating your kind of tableau state. And that's pretty much what the game entails. It's all about taking the right action at the right time, and you kind of want to sneak under the radar in this one. You know, each time I've played this, that seems to be the way that the winner is resolved, because somebody looks really close to winning the game, and you know that they want a particular action, so you go out of your way to restrict them from having that action, where in the background somebody has the action available to them, which gives them that magic move to finish the game. So you do have to be quite alert and quite vigilant on about how people are doing here, which best action to take, not only to help yourself, but to put obstacles in the way of your opponents. Now, I don't want this to sound like it's a terribly strategic game with tons of decision space, because it's not. Generally, what you'll do is you'll find a colour that needs the least movement in order to complete it and stick to a certain game plan, because doing anything else is going to take too much work, essentially. So, you know, the decisions are fairly obvious about what you're going to choose based on the available options to you, but as the game does draw to an end, as I said, you do need to consider what other people are doing in order to hate draft them, not only to, you know, to help you, but also to slow them down so that you might have a chance of winning. But I liked it. It is quite charming. I'm not sure if it has the legs for repeated plays to keep playing again and again, but I did like that fresh idea and that fresh winning condition of trying to line up those cards in a perfect line. So that is Stripes at number 4. At number 3, I have Isle of Trains, All Aboard. Now, this is the card game version of Isle of Trains. This one is a very cool multi-use card game, as you are trying to basically constantly buff or improve your train that you have in front of you by increasing its kind of pulling power, so you can put more of these kind of wagons on them, which will let you kind of load goods and then send those goods off to different regions. At the same time, you're trying to deliver these passengers off to certain locations to get bonuses. Again, really cool use of the multi-use card system, as again, you can use them for resources, you can use them for the cart themselves, you can use them to pay for other cards, and so on. And you know, multi-use card systems are one of my favourite mechanisms. I think it's very cool when they're done to a high standard. This game certainly does that. You are pushed and pulled in different directions. And I even really love this idea of interacting with the other players in this game, because not only are you trying to load your own trains with your own goods to try and complete these contracts, but you are actually rewarded by loading other players' trains with the goods that they want, because you get quite a nice powerful bonus if you do that, but of course you're giving them a kickstart on their next delivery. So I love that trade-off. You know, is it really worth me loading up their wagons in order for me to get this bonus? You know, maybe get a whole big influx of cards, maybe give me a bunch of points, etc. So the game also moves at a very brisk pace. I actually played this one at 2 players the other day, and we played into the point where it was supposed to be a higher player count game, and it still felt short. So yeah, I played it longer than I should have done, and it still felt shorter than it actually was supposed to be, which is definitely a rarity. And it just has a nice flow, very breezy, but still has some good decisions. I have that opportunity cost that you need with a multi-use card system really does shine here. You have to give up this in order to do this. Not leaving yourself into a corner where you don't have any cards to play with, and so on. So all in all, definitely way better than I was expecting it to be. I had heard some good things. Wanted to try it for myself, thought, maybe this is going to be okay, but it's definitely better than okay. And I'm looking forward to see if this holds up to multiple plays, and it really does handle that stress test of playing under different scenarios and different circumstances. So that is Isle of Trains at number 3. Okay, so let's get into the top 2 games here, and this is where my commendations are going to begin. And to be honest, the minute before I started recording this video, I thought I was going to put my number 1 as number 2 and number 2 as number 1. So these two are very close in how I grade them. But at number 2, I have DVONN. Now, DVONN is from the GIF series of abstract strategy 2-player only games. In this one, you are essentially trying to create the tallest stack of discs of your colour. So all you can do is you can pick up one of these stacks and move it a number of spaces equal to the height of that stack. So if it's just 1 disc, you can move it 1 spaces. If it's 3, you can move it exactly 3, and hopefully land on somebody and take their piece. Now, this game has some twists where there are 3 red pieces on the board, and you can only kind of stay on the board with your pieces as long as you can somewhat chain back to those red pieces. And as you can imagine, if you end up hijacking those red pieces and moving those away from your opponent, you can actually eliminate a whole chunk of your opponent's pieces from the board in a single move. So you have to be hyper vigilant in this game, making sure that you're not making mistakes. It's pretty, I wouldn't say cutthroat, but the potential for big kind of catastrophic moves are definitely there if you are not careful. So it kind of strikes that really cool balance of being thinky, definitely AP prone, but still light-hearted at the core, which I really do like. It definitely struck that balance very well. Not a big deal in order to, just re-rack and go again if you do make a mistake. So the stakes don't feel terribly high, but it still does feel like you're making meaningful decisions from the get-go. My only slight bugbear with this game is the setup, because you are populating the board as part of the game, and there are quite a few pieces here, and because there are so many variables, it just feels like you're doing it just to go through a process rather than making anything, making any decision based on what you're going to play during the game. You're just going to be reacting to what your opponent does. So I'm not sure if there should have been a recommended setup or something. I'm not sure, but still, the gameplay is so elegant, it's so smooth, and before you know it, all those pieces have dried up from the board, and you're ready to go. But I think definitely it's one of those games where the best player will win, and I tend to like that with these styles of games. So that is DVONN, definitely a modern classic, and I'm very much looking forward to trying other games in the series because of my plays of DVONN. So that's DVONN at number 2. And finally, at number 1, I have Babel. So another 2-player only game going back to the year 2000. So it's an older one, but for me, this one still feels very fresh. Now, believe it or not, this is an Uwe Rosenberg game, and I don't normally like Rosenberg games. He's normally known for kind of Eurocentric, resource management, farming style games. This one is the furthest thing from that, because this is a sharpen your claws, head-to-head battle, very mean-spirited, very confrontational. So you need to be prepared to offer something different if you see Rosenberg's name on the box. But it's a card-driven game, as you are playing these cards in order to move around to these different locations and build these pyramids. It's going to be a race to get to a certain value of pyramids, essentially. But these cards come with different uses, because not only are they useful to move around the map, but if you play 3 troop types of the same type in sequence, then you will get access to a particular ability, which will let you do things such as steal your opponent's pyramids, or tear their pyramid down, convert their troops into your troops, etc. So you can imagine you are definitely smashing your opponent, you are stealing their stuff from the get-go here, so be prepared for that. But despite that, it still is a very fun game with some clever card play, some good choices. And I do like the way that you can shift things around and move troops from one spot to another, knowing when to leave regions to fend for themselves, and so on. So definitely an optimization puzzle at the same time as a head-to-head battler. But yeah, this one feels distinct, it feels fresh despite being an older game, and I can't really think anything to directly compare it to. But at the same time, it does feel like it feels like it's from that classic line of 2-player games, with games like Lost Cities, games like Kahuna. This one feels like it shares some DNA or the same feeling of those absolute classics. So very impressed by this one. The more I'm playing it, the more I'm liking it. That is Babel at number 1. So there we have it, that concludes the video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it and discovered a game or two. If you have enjoyed it, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.